Dan Ryan. I'm your host here on the Human Capital Connection on the Social Media Connection Broadcast Network. It's a pleasure to have you back here again today. Very honored to have as my guest today Mr. David Cooper. David, it's a pleasure to have you back.
Thank you, Dan. Pleasure to be here.
How are things going for you?
Oh, amazing. Always busy, busy, busy.
David, one of the things that I know you and I spend a lot of time doing is networking. And recently we had a chance to spend some time together in a classroom setting learning about the importance of networking, but also how social networking tools and social media can really enhance or catalyze networking. Tell me about some of your networking secrets.
Well, I will certainly do that, but let me first of all just give a genuine tribute compliment. I spent 2 hours sitting in a seminar setting listening to Dan. Scale of 1 to 10, it was a 19 plus. So any of you that have not had the opportunity to really access his information, his education, his proficiencies, do it, do it, do it. Now, to respond to the question on networking, you know, as a professional speaker, sales trainer, marketing consultant for the past 35 years, it's pretty interesting to think that a guy who's only 59 years old has been doing that for 35 years, but after I set the world record with ITT Financial Services selling mutual funds, everyone was willing to pay for my services. So in terms of networking, what I've generally found through the years is that when someone has paid, then they become a referrer on steroids. When someone has paid, they become a mega referrer, and you've got to make sure that you have the integrity to overproduce and overgive what they were expecting your proficiencies to be enabling them to do. So I always say expectation, exposure, and then proficiency. So they enter into the proficiency with you, hopeful that you're really going to teach them something, and then there's got to be the application of the skills. And so once you've done that for them, oh my gosh, they are eager to share your proficiencies with their network. And so from a speaker's point of view and a marketing consultant's point of view, that's one of the things that I've seen about networking that has a commercial value to it. So much of the time networking is in just relationships and friend of a friend of a friend, and that may or may not. I'd say 80 to 90% of the time those will not have a commercial tone to it. But part of what I've appreciated through the years, you know, I've been president of in my early 20s, I was a member of the Optimist Club, then treasurer of the Optimist Club, writing in checks, then president. But once I became a national speaker, I didn't have as much time for those Friday morning meetings at 7 o'clock. So anyway, I love networking, and I love to have it where I always examine the intent. So whether it's a personal networking process, you know, whether it's church or sporting events, such as you were talking about the other day, or in a professional environment, always examine the intent. You know, when I've trained professional recruiters, I say there's always an interviewee and an interviewer. Sometimes someone's trying to get someone for a job, where other times someone's trying to get a job. And so those things can really be, those hats can be on the different people in those circumstances there. So anyway, I just am a great fan of networking, and so I generally try to look at the difference between, is it going to be a potential commercial thing, but I will give absolutely the same energy and enthusiasm and respect whether it's going to have a commercial implication or not.
Amazing, David. I mean, you touched on so many points. And when we were together a week or so ago, you know, under promise, over deliver.
Yep.
You touched on that point. I think another thing you touched on is that networking is very much a give and take opportunity. And that if you go into networking only expecting to take information out of people, it's just not going to work, because if people know that you are not willing to give, they will stop giving back to you. And it's so vitally crucial that when you go into a networking period, and we are all going through networking phases all the time,
right,
you need to understand what you're trying to accomplish, who you need to be in touch with, and what are the steps in order to get to where you're wanting to go. Any other thoughts, any other just golden tidbits you'd like to share today, David?
Well, one of the terms that you used was the intent. And so I think it's always valuable Look at the integrity of the intent. Look at the integrity of the intent. And the other day, when I was sitting there and watching a pro go for 2 hours, I made very few comments during the event, but trust me, I was logging everything in, and I was just admiring so very much, because some of the people there, well, like there was one gentleman there not involved. Do you remember him? He was on the far end, and he's not on LinkedIn. He's not on Twitter. He's not on anything. He said, I just kind of came a little bit curious to see if there was any relevance for, and you were so gracious the way that you responded with him, and you gently tried to interact with him during the 2 hours. But anyway, the intent always has, that's the litmus test. That's the litmus test, because you always have, you need, I urge anyone to have it where there's not an asterisk next to the intent of the person referencing with them. Meaning, I will be helpful to you, but I have picked up that you're only willing to receive this because you think there's going to be a potential commercial value for it. It's got to be cleaner than that, and it's got to be of a higher mission and a higher purpose. So I just one of the things that I think we mutually appreciate and agree on is just got to have the integrity, got to have the intent. What's the purpose? And so that would be that would be my thought.
You know, David, it's just amazing. When you talk about networking, there is just so much there. And for this particular segment, I think we've gotten to the point where there's really nowhere else we can go. But certainly I'd love to get together again and talk about some of the more specific parts of networking and how social media, social networks can catalyze the networking process. We'd love to have you come back, and we can talk about that another time.
Have me come. I enjoyed it. Always enjoy being with you.
David, it's a pleasure. Again, Dan Ryan, your host on Human Capital Connection. It's been my pleasure to have you here today on the Social Media Connection Broadcast Network. Come back and be with us soon. Have a great day.